My brother stole my identity, maxed my credit, and tried to marry my girlfriend. Then karma came for him. I never thought my life would take such a dramatic turn, especially not involving my own brother. Let's call him Mark. For years, Mark and I had a strained relationship, but nothing could have prepared me for the betrayal that was coming. I was always the more responsible one, the one who planned, saved, and generally had his life together. Mark, on the other hand, was a charismatic whirlwind, always chasing the next big thing, often leaving a trail of minor disasters in his wake. It all started subtly enough. A few years ago, I began noticing some odd charges on my credit card statements. Small things at first: a subscription service I didn't recognize, a small purchase from an online store I'd never visited. I dismissed them as potential errors or perhaps a forgotten free trial. I was busy with my career, working long hours as a software engineer, and deeply in love with my girlfriend, Sarah, who was a talented graphic designer. We had just started talking about moving in together, and our future felt bright and exciting. The strange charges escalated. One month, there was a significantly larger purchase from an electronics store. I called my credit card company, reported the fraudulent activity, and got a new card. I changed all my online passwords, thinking I had been hacked. The credit card company assured me they would investigate, but nothing definitive came back. I was frustrated but assumed it was an external threat. Then came the first truly alarming incident. I received a notice from a car dealership regarding a financing application that had been denied. The name on the application was mine, but the address was different, and the income details were wildly exaggerated. My heart pounded in my chest. This wasn't just a hack. This was something far more personal. I immediately contacted the police and filed an identity theft report. The detective assigned to my case was sympathetic but warned me that these investigations could be lengthy and complex. As the police began their investigation, I decided to do some digging of my own. I started by looking into the address on the car loan application. It was an apartment complex a few towns over, one I vaguely remembered Mark mentioning. A cold dread settled in my stomach. Could it be Mark? I didn't want to believe it, but the pieces were starting to fit together in a horrifying way. His history of financial irresponsibility, his desperate attempts to keep up appearances, his uncanny ability to talk his way into things. I didn't confront him directly at first. I was in denial, hoping against hope that I was wrong. Instead, I started monitoring my credit reports religiously. What I found was a nightmare. New credit cards had been opened in my name, loans taken out, all with addresses I didn't recognize but that were linked to places Mark had recently lived or worked. My credit score, which I had meticulously built up over years, was in free fall. I was drowning in debt that wasn't mine. The stress began to take a toll on my relationship with Sarah. I was constantly distracted, irritable, and withdrawn. I couldn't bring myself to tell her the full extent of what was happening, especially the growing suspicion about Mark. How do you tell the person you love that your own brother is systematically destroying your financial life? Sarah was incredibly patient and supportive, but I could see the worry in her eyes. She knew something serious was going on, but I kept her in the dark about the details, promising I would explain everything when I could point. One evening, I decided I couldn't avoid it any longer. I called Mark, asking if he could meet me for coffee. He agreed, sounding surprisingly chipper. When we met, I tried to approach the topic gently, asking if he was having any financial difficulties. He laughed it off, saying he was doing great, even hinting at a big new opportunity. My stomach churned. I showed him one of the fraudulent credit card statements, one that had been mailed to an address he'd used. His face went pale, and he stammered, denying everything, claiming someone else must have gotten hold of his mail. The denial was too quick, too aggressive. I knew then, with a sickening certainty, that it was him. I went to the police with my suspicions, providing them with all the evidence I had collected. They were initially hesitant to pursue a family member, wanting more concrete proof. This only intensified my resolve. I felt like I was living a double life, outwardly maintaining a semblance of normalcy while inwardly battling a monumental betrayal. The situation spiraled further when I started receiving notifications from a popular online dating site. A profile had been created using my name, my photos, and some of my personal information, but with an utterly fake persona, claiming to be a high-flying entrepreneur, globe-trotting adventurer, and various other exaggerations that only Mark could concoct. The kicker: he was actively messaging women, pretending to be me, and making elaborate plans for dates. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about stealing my entire identity, my reputation, my very self. Then came the ultimate gut punch. Sarah started receiving strange messages on her social media, anonymous accounts sending her screenshots of the fake dating profile, along with cryptic warnings about my secret life. She confronted me, tears streaming down her face, asking if I was cheating on her, if I was living some kind of double life. It broke my heart to see her so distraught. It was then that I finally told her everything. The identity theft, the credit card fraud, the dating profile, and my absolute conviction that Mark was behind it all. Sarah was shocked, initially struggling to process the information. But once the shock wore off, her anger was palpable. Not at me, but at Mark. She saw the genuine pain and distress I was in, and her protective instincts kicked in. She became my rock, helping me gather more evidence, sifting through financial statements, and keeping meticulous records. Her support was invaluable during what felt like the darkest period of my life. The police investigation finally started gaining traction. They uncovered a pattern of fraudulent activity linked to various addresses and accounts, all leading back to Mark. It seemed he had been living off my identity for months, perhaps even longer, using my credit to fund his extravagant lifestyle and failed business ventures. He had even tried to open a joint bank account in my name with a woman he was dating, likely hoping to siphon funds to us if things couldn't get any worse. A truly bizarre and horrifying discovery was made. The police found a marriage license application filed under my name, with Sarah listed as the intended spouse. The signatures were forged, obviously, but the audacity of it was breathtaking. Mark wasn't just stealing my identity, he was trying to steal my entire future, to literally marry my girlfriend, pretending to be me. The thought made my skin crawl. It was a grotesque violation, a twisted fantasy brought to life. When the police finally confronted Mark, he initially tried to deny everything, feigning ignorance and hurt. But the evidence was overwhelming. Bank statements, credit card records, IP addresses, witness testimonies, and the forged marriage license. He eventually broke down, confessing to everything. He admitted he had been jealous of my success, my stable life, my relationship with Sarah. He felt like I always had it easy, that things were handed to me, while he struggled. He started with small things, using my personal information he'd gathered over the years. Then it escalated as he became more desperate and emboldened by his perceived anonymity. The legal process was a long and arduous one. Mark was arrested and charged with multiple counts of identity theft, fraud, and forgery. He faced significant jail time and restitution orders. My parents, who had always indulged Mark's whims, were devastated. They tried to plead with me to drop the charges, to give him another chance, claiming he was sick and didn't know what he was doing. I stood firm. I loved my brother, in a way, but his actions had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. The betrayal was too deep, the damage too severe. Sarah stood by me, reinforcing my decision. She saw the emotional toll it had taken on me and knew that letting him off the hook would only perpetuate his destructive behavior. The trial was a public spectacle, and the details of Mark's deceit were laid bare. The forged marriage license was a particularly shocking piece of evidence that sent gasps through the courtroom. Sarah had to testify, recounting the emotional distress caused by the fake dating profiles and the anonymous messages. It was excruciating for both of us, but we knew it was necessary. In the end, Mark was found guilty and sentenced to several years in prison. He was also ordered to pay restitution for all the fraudulent charges and legal fees, though I knew it would likely be years before I saw any of that money, if ever. My credit was severely damaged, and it took a monumental effort, working with credit agencies and financial institutions to slowly begin rebuilding it. The emotional scars, however, ran much deeper. The relationship with my parents became strained. They still visited Mark in prison, and while they never explicitly blamed me, there was an underlying resentment that I had ruined their son's life. I tried to explain that Mark had ruined his own life, that I was simply seeking justice and protecting myself and Sarah, but they seemed unwilling or unable to truly understand. Sarah and I, however, emerged from the ordeal stronger than ever. The shared trauma had forged an unbreakable bond between us. We learned to trust each other implicitly, to communicate openly, and to face challenges as a united front. The experience, as devastating as it was, had clarified what truly mattered to us. One evening, about a year after Mark's sentencing, I was working late, sifting through old files on my computer. I stumbled upon a digital copy of a childhood drawing Mark had made for me, a crude stick figure drawing of the two of us playing together, labeled Best Brothers Forever. A wave of complex emotions washed over me: sadness for the brother I had lost, anger at the pain he had caused, and a strange, lingering hope that perhaps, one day, he could truly change. But for now, the chasm between us was vast and unbridgeable. Life slowly returned to a new kind of normal. Sarah and I finally moved into our dream apartment, a place we meticulously chose together, building a home filled with trust, honesty, and shared dreams. We were careful with our finances, our privacy, and our relationships. The wounds were healing, leaving behind indelible scars, but also a profound appreciation for the peace and security we had fought so hard to reclaim. We were survivors, and our future, though marked by the past, was ours to build, together and unburdened by the shadows of betrayal. And so, we continued, one careful, hopeful step at a time, toward a future we envisioned, free from the chaos and deceit that once threatened to consume us.